I've decided to start this fun weekly informative automotive series on various subjects I think are severely overlooked by the automotive community. I want to dive into the history, engineering, and aftermarket surrounding some of these vehicles I'll be talking about. I'd also like to explore the realistic what-if scenarios we can make with these vehicles. What if automotive history was just a bit different? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For my first episode, I'll be talking about the General Motors A-body. Oh no, not the classic A-body muscle cars of the 60s and 70s. I'm talking about the front drive A-body platform from 1982 to 1996. I wanted to talk about these vehicles because they are both criminally underrated, also being tragically flawed. To understand why GM designed this front-wheel drive platform as an A-body, you have to understand that GM's original mid-sized A-body was their mid-entry vehicle platform for most of their divisions. This was the vehicle that you got if you wanted more of a conservatively sized ride without trading comfort, economy, or performance. The rear-wheel drive A-body might be remembered for the Chevelle SS, the 442, the GTO, and the GSX, but the plain commuter variants are what really generated the sales. When the mid-70s rolled around, the A-body was bigger, heavier, and slower due to safety regulations and GM dragging their feet with reacting to the gas crisis and smog regulations. They were quickly losing market share, and a worsening recession didn't help. GM had to save costs, innovate, and keep market value. So what did they do? They created a separate mid-sized rear-wheel drive platform derived from the A-body called the G-body. Then GM stretched their failed front-wheel drive X-body platform that the infamous Citation was built off of and tweaked a few of the platform's shortcomings to create the new money-making mid-sized A-body platform. Let me explain why GM made this move. GM needed a cheap and economical mid-sized car for the masses. Front-wheel drive layouts proved to be popular for winter driving, with the added benefit of increased interior space and weight-reducing fuel economy benefits. Imports were eradicating GM's market share with new economical front-wheel drive vehicles, and GM needed to fight back. So what did GM do? They did what they do best and rushed out a market competitor. The Citation was a great idea on paper, but GM's god-awful build quality pissed off a lot of buyers. The 1982 release of the A-body allowed GM to fix some of the mechanical shortcomings of that X-body platform and help recover losses sustained from the X-body development. The A-body proved to actually be a hit. The A-body was sold as the Chevy Celebrity, the Pontiac 6000, the Buick Century, and the Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra. In the 8 years that the Celebrity was sold, it had over 1.3 million units moved. That's only from Chevy's version of the A-body. I couldn't even find sales numbers for the other divisions. I'm not here to supply you with an encyclopedia's worth of boring information on the platform, but I'll try to cover the important basics. The A-body was offered in a coupe, sedan, and a wagon. The Sierra and Century lasted production until 1996, but the Celebrity and the Pontiac 6000 ceased in 1990 and 1991. This platform had a slew of 4- and 6-cylinder engine options for Buick, Chevy, and Pontiac. They were both in carbureted EFI and MPFI variants, all of which were overhead valve designs. They even had the old V6 diesel in the mix for a while as well. The transmissions ranged from a slush box 3-speed automatic, a 4-speed automatic, and even a get-rag 5-speed manual for a limited time in certain models. In 1988 and 1989, the Pontiac 6000 STE offered an exclusive all-wheel drive option with a 3.1-liter V6 mated to a 3-speed automatic transmission. I believe this was GM's first all-wheel drive system in a factory sedan, but maybe somebody in the comments could correct me on that, but I believe so. This was the first one. The top horsepower that you could have gotten out of this platform from all the different models and all the different engine combinations was the 160 horsepower Buick or the Chevrolet V6 engines towards the end of the platform's life cycle. This was basically during kind of the final days of its production. Models to note are the Chevy Celebrity Eurosport VR, which had an outsourced ground effects appearance package combined with the Eurosport trim package. This could be had with a 5-speed manual transmission, so it could kind of be sporty. They had it in a coupe, a sedan, and a wagon variant, and they're really rare today. Some other models to note were the Oldsmobile Sierra XC, the Buick Century GS, and the Pontiac ST all-wheel drive, which we were just talking about. There's also some other rare A-bodies to know, including ones from the Mexican market, and also the Japanese market as well. There's a slew of different options for these vehicles. They vary from touring suspensions, quick ratio steering, sporty wheels, vinyl tops, and much more. These A-body vehicles were like the Legos of GM cars. So let me get to the pros and cons of this GM dice roll. The pro of this move was that GM saved a boatload of money, while simultaneously making a lot of money in the process. The mid to late 80s was not a bad era for GM by any stretch of the imagination. For a consumer side, a consumer could order a fairly reliable vehicle with a lot of creature comforts for a competitive cost. Now, reliable is a subjective term. It really depends on the engine ordered. The classic Iron Duke 4-cylinder, the fuel-injected 2.8, and the Buick 3.8 are regarded as fairly reliable engines, but here lies the issues with these vehicles. While the platform didn't have any catastrophic flaws, it was just cheaply slapped together. Fitment and quality was all questionable. These cars fell apart and rusted away before the engines stopped running. Even the engines, while very respectable, couldn't compete with import reliability. I mean, for the late 80s, getting over 150k out of an engine isn't something to laugh at, but Toyota and Honda were just going much further beyond that. The quality of these vehicles, while not terrible, definitely turned off a lot of potential future GM buyers. They moved on to other brands with better reputations and better technology. On top of their average consumer level quality, they left nothing for enthusiasts or luxury buyers for that generation. No right-minded rich yuppie wanted a Buick or Pontiac ST. They wanted a Mercedes, a Volvo, or a BMW. GM didn't have any high-tech direct overhead cam V6 or 4-cylinder options for the A-body. No turbo, supercharger, or V8 options either. The 5-speed transmission was also a limited option for a certain model year. The biggest disappointment with the A-body for me, and GM in general, is the wasted potential. I'm not sure if it's penny pinching or odd marketing plans, but the GM parts bin in the late 80s and 90s was plentiful. Let's just fantasize for a minute about what GM could have made in the early 90s. The Pontiac ST all-wheel drive could have had a quad 4 direct overhead cam, a 4-cylinder engine, a 5-speed sporty transmission, and all of this combined in an all-wheel drive sporty sedan package. Alternatively, the ST, if it lasted until the production of the Series 1 supercharged Buick 3.8, could have really been a serious sporty and torquey contender. I mean, the V6 that it had factory wasn't bad, but combined with the 3-speed slush box automatic, it really wasn't anything to be proud of. Any A-body could have benefited from these sporty options. Alternatively, the Cadillac 4.5 or 4.9 V8 could have been thrown into the mix, or even the later Northstar. Sure, the torque spear would have been real, but a V8 with a 5-speed combo, even in any A-body, would have been really interesting at the time. Chevy also had its exclusive 3.4-liter direct overhead cam V6 in 1991 that could have been added to any of the A-body vehicles. Why anyone today can and has made some of these wild parts combinations in the community, the problem still lies in the complete lack of aftermarket or reproduction support for these vehicles. They're built as appliances and treated as such. A company did make lowering springs for the generation of that A-body, but they were long out of production when I found out about them. The platform would be amazing with a simple stage 1 suspension kit and a few simple engine mods. The other problem lies in the manual transmissions for these front-wheel drive vehicles. GM just didn't really sell sporty 5-speed V6 cars in that era. Well, that's a lie. They did, but not in a volume enough to go out and find one readily. Or find an aftermarket reproduction for that matter. If you want a manual A-body, you either have to find a super rare one or make one yourself. All of this kind of wraps up into the last issue. These vehicles aren't collectibles because there just is so much better to choose from with that era. The prices to modify these vehicles, while semi-affordable, isn't easy as, say, a Civic or some Fox body. To make one of these go faster, handle well, and provide enough driving feedback, you need to get your GM parts bin and fit the Lego pieces together that you want, while fabbing or custom ordering everything else. On a positive note, from my own experience with a community of front-wheel drive A-body owners, and my own front-wheel drive GM experience, they're charming little cars, and they're pretty easy to work on. They're cheap transportation, if anything else, but you could definitely mod them if you know your GM parts bin catalog like I do. I've seen people V8 swap, turbo, and supercharge these suckers. I've seen them lowered as well. The Japanese even have a small niche A-body scene. These cars have their own followers, but they'll never be anything mainstream unless a big automotive network does something with them. I'd say check them out. They're a product of their time, and I say this before and I'll say it many times, they're kind of charming in a weird way. If somebody puts some effort into sourcing parts, they could probably make a wicked little sleeper out of one of these. If you happen to own an F-body, or a front-wheel drive A-body, link it in the comments below and tell me about it. I'd love to hear from the automotive enthusiasts keeping these underappreciated classics alive. We're trying to make these videos weekly, so if you want to learn more about some of these weird classics, fantasize about what could have came from the factory, and what they can be built into today, feel free to subscribe and drop a like. Also, I run a Malaise era centric Instagram called V8 or Die, with underscores for the spaces. I like to just, post Malaise era cars and underappreciated classics. But yeah, I'll check it on the flip side. Arrivederci, amigos.